Vic Schoenbach, and today is Tuesday, September the 15th, 2015, and I'll be having a conversation with Joan Cornoni-Huntley, who has been a student in the Department of Epidemiology, a faculty member of the Department of Epidemiology, and then has had an illustrious career since then. And it's really a great pleasure to have this opportunity to chat with you about your life. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I like to start with where you come from. When were you born? What was your growing up like?
It's too broad, but I can tell you I came from Massachusetts, outside of Boston, suburbs of Boston.
Which one?
Winchester.
Uh-huh.
And most of my life. And I went to school in Virginia. University, was the women's part of the University of Virginia, which is called Mary Washington. Then I went back to Boston and worked at the Harvard School of Public Health for an outstanding statistician, Dr. Robert Reed, and he taught me a great deal of statistics. And then Dr. Reed was teaching a course in a summer session that the government was supporting at schools of public health, a different one every year. And that year it was in Minneapolis. And so he was teaching a course, and he said, I think you ought to go to Minneapolis also, because there's a professor out there that's teaching a course that everybody says is a marvelous course. And it was Bernie Greenberg's course.
Oh my goodness.
And that was sensational. It was a good course. And and at that point, Dr. Greenberg said, I think you ought to come to North Carolina and get a degree. And I was working for research study at Harvard. And I said, I just can't walk out on them. And fortunately for me, the study lost its funding. And so I called Dr. Greenberg in July of '61 and said, I want to come. He said, you want to come this year? And I said, yes. He said, but I've given away all my fellowships. So that's okay. And so he had me admitted by August 1st. It was amazing at that time. So I came here and got the master's in statistics. And of course, I had learned some about epidemiology at Harvard, but for the degree in statistics, you had to take epidemiology. So, but I decided I wanted to work after the master's, and I went to Yale School of Public Health.
So you did a master's in biostatistics?
I did.
And you graduated in 1962, was it?
62, yeah. And I worked at Yale for a year. And then got a letter from John Castle saying, will you come back? I have some money. And I did not care about living in New Haven. Yale was all right. And so I turned the letter around and came back and went after the PhD. And then actually a short time before I was finished, I had just about everything done. But, excuse me, John Castle hired me. So I could only be an instructor for a while because until I finished the doctorate. And then I got an assistant professorship and worked up on that. In the meantime, I met my husband, and he was chairman of community and family medicine at Georgetown in Washington. And so it meant I had to leave, even though I had tenured faculty appointment at that time. never regretted it. But moved to Washington until we retired. And we retired back to North Carolina because my husband was a North Carolinian, and all North Carolinians seemed to come back to North Carolina. And I loved Chapel Hill, and so we came back and retired. That's pretty much.
So where did you meet him if he was at Georgetown?
At that time, he was at the medical school across the street.
Oh, I see. So he was in medical school and you were. And what year was that you met, if I may ask?
We met long before we ever got.
I mean, were you a student and he was a student, or?
No, he was on the faculty when. Well, let's see. He was in clinical medicine when we first met him, but I really didn't know him too well. And then he was on the faculty when I met him again.
Mm-hmm.
So.
We met at a school also, actually.
Oh, that's nice. That's
very nice, yeah.
Yes.
So your first encounter with John Castle was taking Epi 160 from him, is that right?
Yes, that's true.
When you were a bios student?
Yes, that's true.
What were your impressions of the class?
160?
Mm-hmm.
I loved it. It was fabulous. John taught it.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a very valuable thing. At that time, there was a set of core courses that you have to take for the Masters of Public Health. And the chairman of all the departments taught the core courses. And it was very valuable. It really was. The depth of learning that we got from them was just marvelous. And that was true in all the departments. Environmental, it was called sanitary engineering. And Bernie taught the basic course in biostatistics. And Dr. Losh taught parasitology. It was
John Losh.
Mm-hmm.
How about in health education? Do you remember who that was? Was that before John's? I think that was before Guy Stewart. Oh, they didn't have it required?
It wasn't required.
I see. Okay.
Yeah.
And health administration, was that required? Health administration?
Yes, it was. McGavran. What's his first name?
Edward McGavran?
Yeah.
Taught health administration?
Yes.
I didn't know that. Because he was originally teaching epidemiology.
Oh, really? I didn't
Yeah,
know that.
before John Castle.
No.
He taught 3 courses, I think, in the Department of Epidemiology.
And Dr. Coca taught it with him.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's fascinating.
It was a good education, a wonderful education. Yeah. Basic public health.
Mm-hmm. And also, was there a Pub 100 then, Public Introduction to Public Health?
Yeah, that was the administration course.
Oh, I see. Oh, and that's the one that Ed McGavran taught.
Yes.
So you came to the school in '61. You did a 1-year MPH in biostatistics. Then you went to Yale and worked. And then
9 months, actually.
9 months.
Two of the degrees.
You worked. Oh, you got the MPH in 9 months? My goodness. That's the fast track. Harder to do now. So what was it that led John Castle to call you to say, I have money? Did you had spoken with him about going into epidemiology?
Before I left, 3 professors, Bernie Greenberg, John Castle, and Al Tyrola, pressured me to stay for the doctorate.
In epidemiology?
Whichever one I wanted.
Whichever one you wanted?
Yeah.
My goodness.
And, I mean, Bernie certainly wanted me to stay for biostat, and John and Al wanted epidemiology, so. But I had, I was young, I wasn't ready for it. And that sort of thing.
So in 9 months, so a year later, you were ready for it.
I had a taste of New Haven.
In the winter. Well, you were from Massachusetts.
I think a part of it was that I love teaching. And with just a master's, you couldn't teach in a good school of public health. You couldn't have your own course. You could teach under another professor, but you couldn't have the responsibility. You couldn't design your own course. And I learned that at Yale. So, yeah.
So what kind of work were you doing at Yale?
I was doing a research project in pediatrics.
Mm-hmm. And so then you came back, it would have been 63, I guess?
Yes, it was.
And you did your PhD in Epi with John Castle was your advisor?
No, Al.
Al Tyrola.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
John was on my committee. I had a strong committee.
Remember the other people?
Yes. I had John Fulton,
Mm-hmm.
who was wonderful. I had Dana Quaid and Bernie Greenberg.
That's a
Tough
pretty
committee.
yes, indeed.
It was
The high-powered committee.
3 full professors.
Can you tell me anything about John Fulton? Because I've seen his name often. I've never met
He's a
him.
fabulous man.
And
He had so much common sense, tremendous common sense, and so well organized, and had a very organized mind, brain. But the thing was, as far as public health dentistry was concerned, he could recognize what was valuable, and he was the one that initiated a statewide random sample of dental health conditions of the population of North Carolina. And actually I used that data for my dissertation.
oh, really?
But it was excellent. I mean, it was a well-designed sample, well-collected data, high response rate, had everything. It was beautiful.
And statewide. as well.
Statewide random sample.
My goodness.
I know, it was excellent. There were very few, but that large numbers at that time. So, yeah.
And that was funded by NIH?
My whole studies were all funded.
But the survey itself must have cost.
I don't know how what it was
Substantial,
funded.
right.
I think it probably was a joint thing with the state, I think.
Mhm.
I'm not sure.
Do you know which other faculty were working on that survey? I'm wondering about Gary Rozier, who
Yes, no, I'll tell
Was
you.
he there then?
He may have been him. That name sounds familiar, but the other fellow that was a dentist in health administration.
hmm.
What was his name?
Oh, if it comes back, we can add it
Yeah.
in. But so when was John Fulton there? He was one of the original faculty in the department, I think.
Absolutely, he was John Castle's right hand.
Mm-hmm.
He really kept that department together. He was the administration side of the department.
Huh.
I mean, John traveled a great deal,
Mm-hmm.
and John Fulton was always at his desk answering all the problems. And he was an excellent person.
So when you came in '61, John Castle was the chair by then, and Al Tyrola was there, and John Fulton, and Ralph Patrick would have been there?
Yes, Ralph was there, yes. I
And
think that was it.
But Bert Kaplan wasn't there yet?
He came now. He hadn't even finished his doctorate. But he did do, excuse me, he did do some lectures in 160, because he was the only sociologist.
Uh-huh.
He was the only sociologist in the department, so he carried that discipline.
So when you came in '63
Yes.
to join as a doctoral student, you must have then been a teaching assistant
Yes,
in Epi 160
yes, to John,
with John.
yes,
Because in those years, were there faculty leading each of the labs,
yes,
and they had a doctoral
Yes.
student working with them?
correct,
Uh-huh.
correct, yeah.
And then, how many years did you work on your PhD? There was no doctoral qualifying exam in those days, I believe. I came in my year.
There was a qualifying, you did have to do a pre. Oh, you mean to get into the program?
Well, in 1978, they introduced a doctoral qualifying exam before the preliminary oral exam.
Okay.
That was a written exam that everybody took. That wasn't it. So you had your preliminary oral.
We had writtens after.
And-
You took your preliminary first,
Mm-hmm.
and you had to present the proposal for your dissertation.
Mm-hmm.
And you had, the exam had 2 parts. One was just general epidemiology. It could have asked anything. It didn't even have to be epidemiology. They had to write, they could write everything, and we told that. And then the other half was on your proposal. And then you took your writtens,
Mm-hmm.
and the writtens were composed of questions submitted by each one of your committee members.
Mm-hmm.
And then when you passed those, then you worked on your dissertation and you had to defend it.
Mm-hmm.
And you had to defend it.
And how big was this class that you were in 1963? How many of you were there?
I think when I arrived, there was 3.
3 doctoral students?
So if I remember right, there was Al Johnson, who was finishing now. There was Voice.
Who?
Voice, what was his first
Voice?
name? Voice, what was his first
I
name?
don't know, but I could look it up.
Walter Voice.
Voice.
And myself. Oh no, there was another dentist, Williams. What was his first name? Williams, yeah. Well, Michelle came along somewhere along there too. Michelle,
Mhm.
let's see. That's what it was. It was Voice, dentist, Michelle, and myself. And yeah, that was it. Then the next year, a couple more came in. Yeah.
Wow.
I know. We had wonderful facilities. We had little cubicles with desks and tables.
So this was in Rosenau? In Rosenau
yes,
Hall,
it was
because that was
then.
up by then.
It was then. When I got my master's, we didn't have Rosenau. We were in the basement of the medical school.
Oh my goodness.
Well, actually, epidemiology was in the basement of the medical school, but biostatistics was up on campus.
Oh, in North Campus? I mean,
Up near Lenore Hall.
Oh my goodness, I didn't know they ever
There was a
were.
trailer up there.
Huh, a trailer up there?
Uh-huh.
And then the trailer got moved to...
See, we were closely aligned with Phillips Hall.
Uh-huh.
In fact, our classes were in Phillips Hall.
Oh,
I lived in Phillips Hall. Sometime all night.
uh-huh.
That's
Where the mainframes were, right? The mainframe, it was a 360 in the basement of
Yes.
Phillips Hall.
Yes.
Punch cards.
Well, we had. Actually, we didn't have computers then. No. We didn't. We got the computer when I came back for my doctorate. The federal government gave
That's right.
gave UNC a computer, huge. It took up the whole basement of Phillips Hall. And the federal government gave it to analyze the 1960 population
The census.
census. Yeah.
I'd forgotten that that's...
Yeah.
So what did you do for computing when you were an epidemiologist? Well, you were a biostatistics student first.
And then we
Did you
did a
use
lot more
calculators?
computing. That's right. That's right. All night long.
They weren't programmable calculators in those days either, were they?
They were hand. Oh, no, they were electric, I think. I think they were electric. Yeah. They were in Phillips Hall.
But did they have logarithms and things like that on them?
No. No.
So you didn't do many exact tests and...
We did a lot, believe me. I'm not teasing when we stayed up all night.
Mhm.
I saw the sun come up Phillips Hall many times.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. But I loved it. I loved that time.
Mm-hmm.
I really did. It was a wonderful time because I loved what we were doing. Yeah, it was very...
So when you were over in Phillips Hall, you wouldn't have met your husband.
No.
So that was
No.
when you came back to do your PhD.
That's right. That's right.
And by then you were in Rosenau.
Yes.
And on the second floor area that we used to, I mean, when I
Yes,
came there,
Yes. We were all, as far as I ever, we always had that wing.
John Castle was in that corner office.
That's right. We had the whole corner.
Mm-hmm. And did you all have offices then for the doctoral students?
We had cubicles.
I mean, cubicles, what do you remember what room they were in?
They were,
I'm wondering if it was the old student room that was still there when I went
I
in
think
77.
it is this old student
It
room.
was across from...
Across from where Bert Kaplan's office.
Yes.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Right. My office then came over there too, on the other. I was 2 doors up from Bert. two down from Cecil Sloan.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know who was there then? Dave Jenkins.
Oh, right. Uh-huh.
Have you interviewed him?
No, he passed away.
He did?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes, he did.
Sorry.
I'm very sorry.
I'm
too.
sorry.
It was about not quite a year ago, I think.
Oh my.
Yeah. I think he'd been ailing.
Really?
Yeah. I saw him last at Al Tyroller's memorial service, and I was actually sitting in the row in front of him, and he and his wife were behind, and he was, you could tell that he was not speaking as well as he had before, because when he retired back to Chapel Hill, he taught a course in the department. He taught a social epidemiology course.
I didn't know he had left.
Well, he was in Texas with a very illustrious career. I think it was in Galveston for years, chair of the department, and then I'd have to look up the years, but it was around 2000, I think, he moved back to Chapel Hill, and that's when I first met him, and he had been working on a book that's since been published by WHO.
Wow.
And he taught this course for at least 1 year, might have been 2, on social epidemiology or behavioral epidemiology, something like that, which was very good. I wish I had a syllabus from it still.
Yeah.
And then I heard that he developed Parkinson's disease, but I'm not sure if that's accurate. But he was ill for a number of years and then passed away.
I know he built a house in the Governor's Club.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
His wife is still there. Do you know her?
Good. I knew her. I didn't know her. Haven't seen her any else.
Because I exchanged emails with her or letters or something.
Mm-hmm. Perry.
Yes, that's right. So, so you were doing your doctoral, you remember when you finished your doctoral program?
Well, I got delayed because he hired me in 1966.
Oh, okay.
At that time, I had a few more things to do other than just finish my dissertation.
Uh-huh.
And I was going, I had to teach them, I had administrative work to do, I had missions,
Oh my goodness, so you had all those things.
I had students to advise, and I hadn't finished, but my time was completely taken. So I used to work on my dissertation on the weekends. So I finally got through it all. Anyway.
So you joined the faculty in '66 then?
Yes.
And
yes.
You had an office on that same corridor with Bert and Cecil.
Yes.
And what were you teaching? What were you teaching?
Well, that's when I did the course on statistical methods in epidemiology.
Oh.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard about that.
Oh, it was a nice course.
I'll bet it was. No one mentioned it to me. Now, this was before Dave Kleinbaum was there, right?
Huh?
This was before David Kleinbaum had come?
Yes. It was very different from his. His was very computer-oriented, and mine was methodology, feeling methodology. In other words, if you had this type of question you were asking him, but it took a non-parametric method, so I would teach that non-parametric method. If it took a, special kind of multiple regression, then we would go over that. We would work from the question as to what, and we worked, I think the thread behind it all, which I created a graph table, so that given given the type of data you had these whole types of tests, alternatives for tests to do,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a maze like this one. Really, we went through complete research, starting from developing the question, the whole thing, and used this method with the type of data you were going to have. Your main question was what kind?
What kind of analysis procedure
right.
was appropriate?
That's right. That's exactly
And what computers did you have to do those procedures? Regression analysis? Those want to calculate?
Yeah. SAS had not been written.
Mm-hmm.
SAS was written about the end of that, when I was left.
68 or 9 or something?
No, SAS was written in the 70s. I left the department in 76, 77. I came back, I actually left in 76, but I would come back and teach the course. I come back for 3 days a week.
Oh, my goodness.
Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, fly back to Washington. I did that, and it got pretty tired.
Yeah.
And so,
I'll say.
but that's about the time SAS came in right before that. And that was very interesting because we all knew that there was this program that had been created at North Carolina State. And I forget, I had a large number of doctoral students that I was directing. Some I would be their main advisor,
Mm-hmm.
and some I would be their representative in epidemiology, which they may have been a biostatistician PhD,
Mm-hmm.
and I would be there. I had a lot of them, and I remember, I can't remember exactly which one it was, presented me with this question. And at that time, and this is very important, at that time, the theories, the methodological theories of statistics had gone beyond the human's ability to calculate.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, with large numbers.
Mm-hmm.
You have a large data set. And it was SAS that came in to solve some of those problems. And so I remember saying to students, there's this program that's being written over at State. And at that time, the State, Duke, and Carolina shared the computer facility at RTI.
Tuck. Triangle University
That's right.
Computation
That's
Center.
right.
I used to use it.
And so they would go and learn about this program, and then they would bring the output back to me. And as you well know, as you worked with students too, you look over their results, and I'm sure you know this because we used to use this for tests on the doctoral students when they test. But all of a sudden there'd be a number that was illogical. It wouldn't fit, you know what I mean? But the student didn't see that, and I'd say, no, that can't be. It just can't be. And it was a great way of teaching. Well, what we were doing, we were cleaning up SAS. Because, you know, when you write a program, there is no way you can write a perfect program.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and it's amusing now because I know Jim Goodnight. And one time I was having dinner with him and I said, I'll tell you a story. And I told him about biostatistics and epidemiology at UNC, cleaned up that SAS program. I did a lot to do, but not completely, I'm sure the State did too and Duke did too. I said, we did a lot to clean up the SAS program. And, so that's
I trust he was appropriately grateful.
Jim's a quiet person. Yeah.
So there was also SPSS.
Oh, that was before.
That was before.
I think it was before.
It started before SAS.
I think so.
And were you using that before?
Yeah,
or?
yeah, but that didn't go as complicated as it wasn't as didn't do a lot of the methodology that SAS does.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't as highly organized. Yeah, I think SPSS was in working when I was at Yale. Yeah, I remember that. Yes.
But you could do regression analysis with it,
Yes,
for
yes,
example.
yes, yes, sure.
And Nova.
Sure. In fact, Ellen Kaplan taught the computer program for the whole of UNC. I mean, I think well, not for all of UNC, but certainly for the School of Public Health. She taught the students computer programming.
No one's ever mentioned that to me, including Ellen. It's not that I remember.
She taught it. Yeah. She's brilliant.
Mm-hmm. So, before you finished your PhD, you became a faculty member, and you had students, and you were doing public. Were you working on the Evans County study?
I certainly
as
was.
well?
Everybody was.
Everybody would.
Yeah.
What other studies were you working on? Were you working on the dental study?
Yeah. There weren't many studies. There were some small ones.
Mm-hmm.
There were small ones, but there wasn't. Eric didn't exist. None of those existed. No.
Mm-hmm. But there was Fort Wayne, Indiana?
That actually, John Castle asked Barbara Hulka to initiate that actually when she came.
Mm-hmm.
And she and Frank Cordell developed it with people from Indiana too. So Fort Wayne, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
has that developed probably. They went through designing it and writing the questionnaires and the whole thing. Yeah.
And you taught in Epi 160 also, didn't you?
Oh, everybody.
Did you have a lab of your own?
Yes.
With a doctoral student? You were a doctoral student, but you had a lab and a doctoral student teaching assistant?
I don't think I had a separate lab until I was on the faculty. I was an instructor.
But I mean, when you were on the faculty,
Yes.
you were not yet, you were still a doctoral
I
student.
had the I had the statistical part, the ones that want to take statistical methodology. That's the piece I had.
Oh, Epi 160 had a lab for students. I didn't know about that one. I hadn't heard about.
The methodology.
Yeah, I didn't remember that there was a lab like that. Because I don't know if there was the year I took it. I took Epi 160 in 1972.
Yeah.
And so there was that lab, and I didn't remember that
Certainly.
one.
Yeah.
I was in Bert Kaplan's psychosocial epidemiology lab.
Yeah.
So, do you know anything, did you hear much in terms of the stories of how the department was founded?
Founded?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know too much.
Sidney
I know
Clark.
Sidney Clark, yeah, started it. I don't know too much more than that. I think that he came from a social medicine background.
Sidney Clark.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And of course that was what John Castle latched on to too. I couldn't tell you too much. John was the second after Sidney Clark.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of interesting now because when John Castle started putting an anthropologist, a sociologist, a psychologist on this department, which was epidemiology at that time, was almost 100% physicians, doctors, MDs,
Mm-hmm.
MDs. And even at Harvard, when I was up there, and because of the professor I was working for, he had me teaching in the lab for biostatistics.
This is at Harvard?
I only had a bachelor's degree. I know. And, but at Harvard, they only took people with MDs and PhDs if it was in biology, chemistry, one of the sciences.
Mm-hmm.
So, but then how things have changed, because John was on the right track. He was the one that brought in the social sciences and the effects of social science on disease, health, and status, this sort of thing. It was John Castle, and it was not done universally.
Mm-hmm.
No, he did that. He deserves a lot of credit for that, because today, even the medical schools are accepting it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now, were you the first non-physician, non-social scientist faculty member in the department? In other words, the first one?
I had a lot of science background in my training, but I was the first non-physician